Welcome to Show, Don't Tell, a podcast by TelScreen's team of Wes Harris and Kent Harris, sharing their stories of being in the eye care industry in their unique, punny style with facilitator Christy.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Show, Don't Tell with Kent and Wes Harris, facilitated by Christy.
Hi.
The part of Christy will be played by Kent today.
Welcome, everybody. The guys have just eaten lunch. And we want to be very succinct with our topic today. And it's also relevant to have just ate lunch, because we're going to talk about the top
8 questions our customers have.
That's right.
The first one is not what was for lunch.
And if you've been around at all and you've listened to some of these episodes, you'll
God bless you.
For one. And you'll also notice that these guys are very punny in their style, which makes it a little lighthearted and fun to talk about some, serious questions and getting into the minutia of what technology is and does for you and your practice. So take it away, Wes. Top 8 questions on the board.
So we kind of have a subdivision here, and Kent handles the technical, and I usually handle more of the sales and the business side. So we're going to start with the technical first. Does it work with my EHR?
Almost all electronic health record systems, that's what EHR was for those who are not in the lingo,
That'd be me.
have some way to import a photo or a report or a PDF, basically a known file format is the mechanism they use. And we can certainly export a compatible file format. So will it work with my EHR? Almost 99% yes. However, almost none of the EHRs, or almost none, there may be one out there, allow you to import video. So if you need video in your medical record, we usually recommend our viewing software, which allows you to view video anywhere else in your exam lane. And so that's the short answer of electronic health records. Now, the exciting news is that more of the electronic health records are adopting a DICOM standard, which was a standard that was originally developed for X-rays back in the, I think, 70s or 60s, somewhere in around there. It was pretty early. Yeah, it was early. I did research on it back in grad school, so... Anyway,
that was in the 80s.
Yeah. But that imaging standard has evolved to support a lot of different, as they call it, modalities. Mm-hmm. So the methods of
first you needed a communications network for DICOM, and DARPANET 60s would have been the very, very earliest. So
yeah, I read a paper that I think was in the 70s on DICOM. So anyway, it's been around for a while, whether, don't know when the first implementation was, but certainly the idea for it has been around for a while. It used to be called PACS, for a picture archiving communication system, I think. Anyway, nice little technical trivia for today for 100, Alex. What was the name of the X-ray imaging standard back in the 70s? PACS.
PACS is a generic term,
yeah,
and DICOM is one implementation of it.
Thank you.
Well, there we go.
Side note.
And I'm sure there's going to be a lot. So whoever's taking notes, there's a lot going on here today.
So bottom line is how easy it is to use your EHR with the IRES system depends upon how much the EHR has devoted to integration with other products. So we built our system to have a number of different interfaces available, from the manual process of export from here, import there, where it's more tech-driven. Doctor marks, I want this photo in the chart, and then the technician exports it from IRES, imports it to the EHR. And then several packages built some semi-automatic mechanisms that would watch a folder, so we could export to a folder, and they would watch it, parse the file name, and bring it into the patient's record semi-automatically. And DICOM takes it one step further and makes it more automated end-to-end.
Okay. Things that a patient really doesn't even have to think about. Like, all that stuff's just part of what a doctor and the staff have to do as part of the practice. That sounds very complicated as a patient.
Well, if you were a patient back in the 70s and you had an X-ray done, you might remember if you were had an X-ray at your primary care office and then had to go see a specialist, you might remember having to take film, like picking up a big envelope of film, of x-ray film, developed x-ray film, and then bring it with you to your appointment.
So the communication method was your doctor handed you this envelope of your x-rays and you took it to your next visit.
And you all know the probability that that x-ray made it to that visit.
I was just thinking
Unfolded.
user error, right?
Yeah, so.
Awesome. So that was question number 1.
So the corresponding question I get in the exam lane is, will it fit on my existing slit lamp? Basically, do I have to buy a new slit lamp to use your camera? And there are some of our competitors who basically built imaging systems as a way to sell slit lamps. If you want an imaging system, it only works on our newest slit lamp, and this is it, and here's your whole package. And we thought that was a little bit unfair, that if you like your slit lamp and it still works, you shouldn't have to get rid of it just to get a camera put on it. So
That was our green initiative. Reuse.
there you go. And I'm wearing my green shirt today just for that reason.
And I'm relatively new to podcasts, so there's our third green.
So we designed the iris system.
Keep moving this forward.
Keep moving forward.
Editor's note, cut that last little bit.
So we designed the iris system to fit most existing slit lamps. Basically, we have to find the right optical adapter. You need to have a Galilean-style slit lamp, a knob on the side to change mags, not a lever between the eyepieces that's flipping between 10x and 16x, for instance. So if you have a Galilean slit lamp, then either a discrete 3-mag or 5-mag slit lamp or some zoom slit lamps, then chances are very, very good that we could put a modern camera on it without making you buy a new slit lamp.
That's question number 2.
It is question number 2.
For those keeping score at home.
Question number 3 that I get usually sometime during either the installation or slightly thereafter, someone will finally alert their information technology professionals in their practice that, hey, I'm adding new equipment to my practice. And the IT people say, oh, well, where are you keeping the data? Where are the images stored? And so, my short answer to that question is, where do you want to store them? An advantage of having engineers support our product is that routine customizations are built in. They were anticipated in the product design. And where you store the data is one of those routine customizations. We can store it locally. We can have a turnkey instrument that everything's on the instrument and it's right there and available, and many other products do that. We can move your data to your own server, and if you have automated backup or automated cloud backup or the various encrypted storage options that are available, we can do that for you. It's all possible. So we'll work with you and your IT provider to deliver the best solution for your situation.
So rather than telling you where your images are stored, we'll ask you where do you want that to be, and we'll make it work that way. And if you don't know or you don't care, then we have default options that have been proven to work very well.
That's okay. As somebody I will say it, I'm a control freak. I need to be in control of where that's happening. Like, I don't want to adjust to that. It needs to adjust to me. I'm that person. Do you guys have other people like that out there anywhere?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that custom approach to where my data goes, that's a big deal.
And back the historical note on why we built those customizations, back in the very first versions of the software when I was writing it, hard drives were, I think, we were 100 meg, 200 meg, I think. About 200 meg hard drives. Yeah. So a hard drive was only 200 megabytes, somewhere around there, maybe 500.
Wait,
but 200 megabytes,
like
not even a gigabyte yet. we weren't on to gigabyte storage just yet. And so a real issue was, okay, doing the engineering analysis, how many photos are you going to take? How many patients are you going to have? How much will fit on a hard drive? How will I manage storage?
How many can I burn on a CD?
Right.
Yes, that was a valid question, right? A CD was 700.
650 meg.
650.
After formatting.
Right. And so you had to consider those things. And the other question was, we wanted to make sure that a doctor could put imaging in more than one place in his practice, and then it wouldn't matter where the patient was chaired, he would have access to his images. So we built in networking from the very beginning. That was a design feature. And back in those days, we even had to split storage among all your units to use all the available hard drive space to try and get maximum storage. And we pretty much expected that the rate of technological advancement would keep far ahead of the rate of data gathering of our eye doctors, because the number of patients a doctor can physically see in a year, that's kind of capped. I mean, there haven't been any revolutionary, I don't think, improvements. I mean, maybe, the growth rate of it certainly is not exponential. It might be a slight linear factor. People might get a little more efficient with EHR software or with other packages that let them see an extra patient or two in an hour. But
so, Kaylin worked for a retinal specialist who saw 100 and some patients in the morning on Friday when it was injection clinic. And that's probably a hard limit on how many patients can, and that was actually a 2-doctor morning, but how many patients can a doctor physically see in a certain amount of time? 50 and a half day is moving awful fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking what? They said 2 doctors, so you're looking at...
Well, 50 per doctor.
50 per doctor, but you're
Right.
talking
12,
about 12 an
patients
hour.
an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly wouldn't be doing imaging or a full exam workup on that. I mean, our eye doctors are anywhere. We had one eye doctor that was, he specifically left an hour for each patient so that he could do a super thorough exam for all of his comprehensive exam patients. And he just liked it that way because he said, look, I want to make sure that everyone gets the most comprehensive care when they first come in. And then, follow-ups are routinely 15 minutes, a 15-minute to 30-minute appointment. But I would say most of our docs are, 4 an hour maybe?
3 to 4 an hour is a pretty good number.
Where you've got a mixture of complex and simple, in terms of patients you've seen before or not. I mean, I would guess. I don't know. But, still, at 4 an hour, that's 32 a day for an 8-hour day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty heavy load. Most people would agree. That's a pretty heavy load for a doctor.
So that kind of puts a cap. So even if they get technology that helps them go a little faster, maybe they're getting 40 a day instead of 32, but they're not getting like 60 or 90. I mean, they're not growing that rate.
And most of them don't want to.
And most of them don't want to.
Yeah, I don't blame them. That's a lot. That's a lot.
But storage-wise, obviously in the 20-something years we've been doing this, now the standard, instead of 200 megabytes, it's 1 terabyte. So that's a million megabytes is a terabyte. So
I was gonna say,
you're looking at...
It's kind of weird just in the storage numbers alone. Mm-hmm. Like in my lifetime, to sign up on 250 meg, I was like, wow. I found one of those little buggers one day.
A floppy drive?
The little
floppy
drives.
disk?
The 3.5s?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I still have
720 kilobytes or 1.
Per side.
Yeah, or 1.44 megabytes. Woo! We were so excited when a floppy drive got to a megabyte. That was a big deal.
Well, and total tangent here, but like the old cartoons, G.I. Joe, I've been watching that a little bit recently. And of course, you go in and you have to steal the thing out of
Right.
And it was the big, 8-inch?
Yeah, big platters.
The big platters, and they were taking it out of it. It was like, oh, wow, how far we have come.
The Wang word processor with the 8-inch floppy drive.
That was crazy. Okay. So back to the questions.
So that kind of circles around into the conversation about, will it pay for itself?
Yeah.
And when you talk about storage and having enough storage for all the data, will it pay for itself comes down to how often are you using it, who are your patients, what do they need, and if you have a patient demographic that's all young, healthy kids with no problems whatsoever, and it's just, can you read the eye chart, yes or no, you might not need an imaging system for that case. Sprinkle in a few adults, a few contact lens abusers, anyone who's old enough to have an age-related eye disease, anybody who works with metal in a machine shop, on an assembly line. Foreign body removal is a big thing.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So once you start to sprinkle in any of those things, people that have allergies, people that have red eyes, anything that ends in itis, Then there's a whole bunch of reasons why you might want to take a picture. And so the will it pay for itself conversation really starts with what's your demographic? Who are the people that you see on a daily basis? Tell me about your last 5 cases. And if your last 5 cases are all, wellness, eye health checks, prescription updates, and you had no sniff of anything medical in your last 5, that would be a question for me of, do you really need this technology or not? And it's not for everybody. It's not for every practice modality. If you are treating medical, then there's probably a place for it. And the next question becomes, well, how much medical are you seeing? How often does it occur? We have a pretty good idea on the reimbursement side from Medicare, state by state. Those numbers are updated every year and usually published around March or so, or in their final form. So we can actually do a custom business case based upon your practice, your patients, what you usually see, how much does it pay in your area, what are your major insurance carriers that you accept. We can figure it out. What should your cash flow be? What should the rate of return on this equipment be? What's the payback period? Is it going to take 2 years to pay for itself? Is it going to take 4 years? Is it going to be 6 months? I think the fastest was 6 weeks.
Wow.
For practice in Florida, in which everybody had sun exposure.
Right.
Everybody had something, and treating the medical conditions associated with the weather was a big part of the practice.
I was going to say, because it sounds like, to me, that kind of a question, the first answer is, it depends. But you guys also have a formula to figure out how to get to the answer that they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing I always want to bring up is the one thing that isn't accounted for, will it pay for itself? You also have to account for, how does this make my practice and my time more efficient when I'm communicating with a patient? Does it save me any time? Does it give me an extra breather? Does it save a minute or 2 per patient in the discussions for those patients? Because those are the sort of soft benefits that we don't have really good ways of measuring, at least measuring to an engineer's satisfaction.
Well, quality of life for a practitioner. So in the early days when we were developing this product, we were working with Dr. Larry Alexander when he was practicing here in Louisville. And the first prototype, he looked at it and he said, images are great, but I can't use this. This sucks.
No, his exact words, this is crap.
Yes. The reason why, it would take too long to use. And so that led us to focus on user interface and improving the product so that he was faster practicing with an imaging system than he was without one. And that's when he said, now you've got something. So the idea that the imaging system can very least not slow you down, but possibly speed you up just a little bit, because the patient understands faster. They feel like they got access to your expertise, and it was a quick process. You didn't keep them in exam lane jail for 30 minutes.
Right.
So
You didn't bring out the models that anybody who has not studied anatomy can't figure out. When they're looking at a 3D model of an eye and they're trying to imagine, I don't know if other people are bad at this or not, but sometimes getting oriented in a 3D space with a little physical model is sometimes hard to figure out what am I looking at? What are you showing
Right.
me here?
yeah, and all these plastic pieces were
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar
So-
with any of that.
So being able to use a photo of the patient's own eye rather than a model of some sort,
Right.
or a cartoon or a sketch, or like back in the day when my daughter needed to see a cardiologist on a regular basis, the paper that would line the bed, the exam
Yeah.
bed. So he would be sketching on that paper and drawing QRS
drawing
complexes and EKG traces across the. That was his educational media at the time.
Okay. Well, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Amazing cardiologist, but he could have used a picture or two.
Right.
So-
No.
So as a presentation tool, there's other values to the equipment other than just the income value. As my father said long ago when he was trying to boil this down simply, he said, there's 2 ways you can improve the financials of your business. You can increase revenue or you can decrease costs. And any technology should be evaluated, which bucket does it fit into? And if it doesn't fit into any of those buckets, then maybe you shouldn't purchase it, because it might just be a shiny new thing that doesn't decrease your expenses and doesn't increase revenue, but it looked shiny and new and sounded great when you were on the show floor with a charismatic person that was presenting this shiny new thing to you.
Salespeople that look better than us.
Yeah.
And I would say the same goes for your marketing plans, just FYI. Don't buy into the shiny object syndrome. Awesome. Okay, so
Is that an SOS plan, the shiny object syndrome?
and that is one of the things that in my own business I help my clients overcome. Like, no, I'm like, focus here, right here.
Kent and I are both looking at her snapping fingers. We have no choice.
Yes.
We've been trained.
Ooh, what's shiny? I see shiny. Shiny.
Like, what about
Focus.
this? What about that? And I'm like, no, you've got this right here. We're gonna stay in this lane. Okay, so faster for the practitioner, better experience for the patient,
Hey, that sounds nice and succinct.
right? I mean, that's
Can we
where
have
we've
that?
gotten
Is that
to
can we
so
put that on
far.
our tagline?
I don't know. There's
And then the third
Faster for
value
the
that
doctor, better for the patient.
yeah.
Can we just add that? Just send that out in the next.
sure. Wes, you were saying.
I have no idea. The third issue is,
Yes.
does it produce marketing value?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Does it help you help the patient to understand that they need other services? Even if they don't necessarily want to need them, they actually would benefit. Their health would benefit. Their eye health would be better if they availed themselves of some other things that the practice does, such as meibomian gland expression and dry eye treatment of various sorts, either products or supplements or procedures,
yeah.
that generate revenue for the practice. And this can be a tool, imaging can be a tool to help patients realize that they need it.
So,
for example,
decrease your marketing expenses for those procedures.
when you do blepharoexfoliation
Okay.
with one of the various tools out there,
Gesundheit.
being able to show the patient before and after that this procedure made a difference. Your lid margin is much cleaner and much healthier now. We've got rid of the scurf and debris that collects there and have taken away the food source for Demodex mites or other things.
Understood.
That story, patients will pay for that
Right.
when they know why they're paying for it.
Well, and having the image right there versus the explaining it, either writing it out on a piece of paper or the 3D model, having that image of my own eyeball, my trust factor in my doctor is like through the roof, amazing at that point, because you're allowing me to see exactly what you're talking about. And so now I'm like, we're on the same page with
It's
this.
almost like you're showing them, not telling them.
Well done.
5 points to Ken.
Because all his other speech has been pointless up to this point.
Come on now.
I awarded no points. He's correct. I awarded no points until just now.
We'll do a fast and easy question. Can I put the data on my server? Reference that earlier question. Yes. So the answer is yep.
Yes. Because they get to choose where their data goes. So if they wanted to go on the server, they can.
That's correct.
Awesome. All right.
Question I get quite often is, why didn't you make me do this sooner? And
I like that question.
if compulsion were my superpower, I would probably use it on something else, like keeping bad people from doing bad things.
Sure.
I probably wouldn't waste that superpower helping good doctors make better decisions about equipment. You'll put it off until you're ready for it. And once you have it, then you'll say, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. Why didn't you make me? And I'll say, well, I don't have that superpower. Sorry about that. But your decision, when does your practice need it? Quite often, the cold start practice benefits tremendously as the first piece of technology. Because it's versatile, you can use it for anterior segment. You can take a condensing lens, 90 diopter, 78 diopter, digital 1.0 from Volk. Shout out. And now you've got a fundus camera. You can take a picture of the back of the eye. You have to do a little bit of work on the slit lamp to scan around to see the entire area. But you can use it as a fundus camera for posterior conditions as well. So it can become the one tool, the one imaging tool that you need first. It's not the only one you need. It's not the only one you'll ever need, but it's a first tool. So for a startup practice, it's a money-saving idea. If you can't buy that OCT with the dual OCT fundus camera built in,
And the
great.
Kung Fu grip.
G.I. Joe throwback reference. So if you can't get that right out of the box, then a good anterior segment camera can do both until you have the patient flow that you need to be faster, and then the fundus camera now saves you time, which reduces your cost.
Awesome. Was that the last question?
Oh, no. I've got a question. Number 7 was, can I use my existing computer in my exam lane? And this actually happened recently. I was at the West Virginia OA meeting at the Greenbrier, such a lovely property. It's amazing. And one of the doctors had asked, well, I just bought brand new computers for my lanes. I just opened the practice a few months ago. I just bought new computers. Can I use them? And yeah, it may or may not be technically possible on any given computer.
Depending upon which imaging system
Depending
you're
on
buying.
which imaging system you buy, they may or may not have the interfaces we need. The computer is one of those engineered components that we design into our system so you don't have to make those detailed decisions. So it can certainly, yes, it is a computer in there. You'll see a label from a recognized computer brand like Dell or HP in our product, but it may not be cheaper to use your computer if we've got to do a lot of extra work to make it work. And if we have to research and look at, oh, okay, well, gosh, your computer only had this much RAM, or we needed this slot and you don't have it, and you didn't put the option to have the 9-pin serial port on the back to have a foot pedal attachment, so now we got to have another way to get a foot pedal. And
9-pin what?
Yeah.
so, there are details that go into these things. And yeah, you just brought a brand new computer, but that doesn't mean it was designed for imaging. So, if you think that you're going to save a ton of money by using your own machines, that's a misperception. It probably won't be that much cheaper, because anything that we save on the hardware side, we have to now have custom engineering work to make sure that we have a solution that works, and it adds back on the cost side.
Gotcha.
So-
Well, and that makes sense. So what would be the best thing for somebody to do whenever they're in that position?
A lot of times what I recommended for this doctor is I said, well, our computer is generally stronger than most a typical machine that you will get. It'll have extra capability, extra room and processing power in it, because we want to ensure that if you do use this computer as the only computer in your exam lane, that you can run your other applications on it, most likely. So I often can recommend, said, hey, you can use our computer in the exam lanes, because if you can't put exam lanes in every single imaging systems in every single exam lane, then you may have some, in the lanes that you do add imaging, you can use that computer for your general purpose computing needs in those lanes, and then have the new ones that you just bought. Well, now you've got a spare in case one of your other machines crashes or dies. You've got hardware ready to go. And you really haven't lost it. You've just deferred the value of it.
So it can be used as a hot spare, pre-configured, ready to just plug in and go. So if you do have a computer problem, your downtime is take this one out, plug it in, go.
Gotcha.
So it can really cut down the impact of a computer fouls up while you're trying to get something done.
But if it is a brand new machine and you're using our latest systems, some of that might be possible. Yeah, we might be able to do some custom work, and maybe we could save you a little bit of money. But it's going to be a little bit. It's not going to be a lot.
Yeah, part of what we pride ourselves on is delivering complete solutions that work. And to make sure that they work, it takes some testing. It takes some thought about the component selection. If you're asking us to substitute a component, we're going to not only just think about it, we're also going to test it before we say, yes, this is still a TelScreen imaging system.
Right.
And that happens just in our regular course of business as computer manufacturers deliver new models and innovate and new form factors, all those things. Every time we get a build, even if it's the same form factor and it's the same model, and it's another generation, it's a slightly different model number, but it's the same family, then we still have to go through settings and testing, because there's a lot of little details under the hood that if you don't check them, one of them will bite you. And that's not fun.
Not, no.
So that was a nice segue into the last question of the top 8.
Okay.
I want this in all my exam lanes, but how can I afford that?
Oh.
And you're right. It's one of those things that once you get used to having it, you want it everywhere. You don't want a patient to walk into one room and remember, well, last visit you took a picture of my eye. How come we're not doing that this time? And it's kind of doesn't feel good to say, well, we're in the wrong room.
Right.
Or we have that in special places, but today you're not special. I'm sorry. No, nobody wants to say that.
No.
We don't like you.
We used to like you, but now we don't. Yeah. Sorry
no
about your
digital imaging for you.
The soup Nazis made an appearance. So the question is, how do you afford that? And there are practices that have said, okay, I have 15 exam lanes. I need 15 cameras, and they made that happen. That's not the typical practice. That's not the normal case. That is an exceptional case. It takes a fairly well-established practice to have the cash flow or the line of credit to support that, and
And
the
the
experience knowing that that imaging will pay for itself.
Right.
So part of it is it's not their first imaging system. They learned early on that if I have it and I use it, it pays for itself. And so therefore, this is not as big a risk as other people might perceive because of their experience base in their own practice, in their own state, with Medicare reimbursement, with other insurance reimbursements, with out-of-pocket willingness to pay from their cash-paying customers. So that basically deleverages the risk for them because they already know what the revenue stream is going to be. But for those who are not in that position, the key question is, how many exam lanes do you have that are fully equipped? You invested in a chair and a stand and a 4-opter and a slit lamp, maybe hand tools, imaging lenses. You've got cabinets and sinks and did some plumbing to build an exam room here, and you equipped it. That's not cheap. If you're sending enough patients through that room that you're happy that you built it, then slit lamp imaging will probably pay for itself. If that room is at the end of the hall and it gets used once a month, probably not.
And I would say there's other issues to consider besides just whether or not you're getting a slit lamp or an imaging system.
Yes. Yeah, the question of scale. Do you need an associate so that you can see enough patients that you can book it and use it?
Yeah.
Or did you overbuild and you've got some growing to do? A lot of practices on the cold start side will build for a certain number of exam rooms, but they'll only equip 2 of them at the start, or sometimes just 1 at the start. Basically let the revenue grow and the patient base grow until you need the second one before you invest in the equipment.
But you already have the space to grow into.
But you've got the space,
Yep.
you've wired it up, you put the networking jacks in. So
You've done the build out and you've paid those up, the fixed cost of that up front
Yeah.
because you're already doing it. It's more efficient. So
Yeah.
planning ahead.
But part of what we can do is we can do a custom business analysis once we understand your demographics and how busy you are, how many doctors you have, and how your patients flow through your practice. Do you move them from the pre-test equipment to another room in which techs are doing some workup and then you move them to an exam room? Or do they get moved from pre-test directly to an exam room and the doctor cycles through a bunch of exam rooms? And if there are special rooms for exams, then those are the rooms that need imaging. And if every room is the same, then you can make a case for they all need imaging, and how do you get there? And that, again, becomes practice-specific as to what the best path would be.
Gotcha.
I think that's all we got.
Well, one of the key things that I've heard through a lot of this is that you guys really get into the weeds with your clients so that you can develop those custom solutions that are going to work for their practice.
And actually, I want to give a shout out to Jay Wallach at NIDEC. One of the common questions we get at laser courses is, why would an optometrist need a green laser? And Jay's answer is, in 99.99% of practices, you would never use a green laser enough to pay for itself. And part of my job is to prevent you from doing that. Unless you're in that 1/100th of 1% that would actually use it often enough that it would be a good decision. And I appreciate that perspective that part of a salesperson's job is to make sure that we don't let our customers buy things they don't need.
Right. Well, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are very appreciative of that.
Well, there are a lot of salespeople out there on commission whose job is to make sure their family gets fed.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we're not them, so our job is to make sure that we have long-term relationships with doctors who
Sean and Josh, don't listen to that statement. You'll still get fed.
they can feed themselves. But again, the goal is the long-term relationship. We want you to be happy that you met us.
Right.
We don't want you to look at it and say, gosh, I wish I hadn't have bought that.
No, because you like that one question they keep asking.
Yeah,
Why didn't you make me get this sooner?
exactly. We want them to keep asking that question.
Exactly. And there's plenty of options for that. So,
And, one of the fun philosophical things that I've come to discover about business, if you take a short-sighted view of how can I sell the most right now without considering the customer's needs or wants, then you've imposed an additional cost in your business that has been hidden to you and you may be unaware of. Because if that customer discovers that they didn't need it and you sold it to them, the chance of them coming back to you for a solution or for help just went to zero. You just lost a customer and you didn't even know it.
pretty much.
So that could be a huge cost. And so don't do that. Minimize your costs.
So don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, these have been great questions, you guys. I appreciate the extra information for some of these to go a little deeper into the, especially the technical stuff. I always learn something new with technical things.
So we have a special segment today.
Shocking statistics.
Yay.
Look at the enthusiasm for statistics. How unexpected. In a well-known Dilbert cartoon, a clerical worker tells the pointy-haired boss, "This is shocking. Fully 40% of your staff's sick days are taken on Mondays and Fridays." And the boss replies, "What kind of idiot do they think I am?" And the assistant says, "Not an idiot savant. They can do math." Can't you want to explain it to people?
Well, you see, there are 5 work days. No.
Is that all you got?
No. In a similar vein, a doctor once told me with tongue firmly planted in cheek, 100% of after-hours medical emergencies occur when my office is closed.
How inconvenient.
Somebody should do something about that.
Okay.
My recommendation is perhaps we should teach statistics to more people.
And I thought my solution was maybe we should just administer more electroshock treatments to more people.
Wow.
Shocking statistics.
Oh. And we're done.
This concludes another fine episode of Show Don't Tell.
He said it was fine. I thought it was pretty good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for continuing to come back and support the podcast and the fellows. Say hi when you see them out at the next trade show, because
AOA, Washington, D.C., June 22nd.
and then this fall, isn't that September?
Vision Expo West.
Vision Expo West this fall. So catch you again on the next episode of
Show Don't Tell.